Well, in the game on Sunday between the Patriots and the Cleveland Browns, we saw two things continue their trend so far in 2025. Drake May is having an unbelievable season and might be the best deep ball thrower in the NFL right now, and might end up being the best quarterback of the six taken in the first round in 2024. We'll find out, but he's on that track. And the other thing is that Myles Garrett is an unstoppable force. He had 5 sacks in that game. 5 sacks in that game. And oh, by the way, the first one, let alone the subsequent 4, gave him the most sacks under the age of 30 in the history of the NFL. That put him at 108.5 sacks, just ahead of Hall of Famer Reggie White. So that's the kind of number we're talking about. That's the kind of career we're talking about when it comes to Myles Garrett. And after the game, he was extremely upset. And he said, as dominant as this performance was, I just want to win. I'd trade it all for a win. And therein lies the rub. Because you probably remember that in February of this year, after another horrendous season with the Cleveland Browns, Myles Garrett put something out there asking for a trade request. He expressed concern about the Browns' direction, especially with the rookie quarterback coming in and everything that was going on, and said, I don't want to go from Canton to Cleveland. And then what happened? They offered him $40 million a year. And suddenly, he decided he wanted to stay. And I want to be clear. I do not begrudge Myles Garrett for taking that money. It is life-changing, life-altering money. Here's the problem I have with Myles Garrett. 8 games into the season, 7 games into the season, after you sign that 4-year, $40 million contract, $160 million in overall value. Obviously, it probably won't play out that far, but you're getting $40 million for the first couple of years. Again, life-changing, altering money. You knew what you were signing up for. You knew who this team was. You knew their record. You knew their problems all of last year. You've known their problems ever since you were the first overall pick in 2017. Yeah, you made it to a couple of postseasons, and you won a game in the COVID year against the Steelers with Baker Mayfield as your quarterback. But that's the outlier. The Cleveland Browns have been a disaster for decade upon decade. So I understand the competitive nature of Myles Garrett, and I understand his frustration. But I also have a little bit of, and? So what? You knew who they were. It's like what we talked about when we talked about the live guys. Some of them saying, I'm not doing. You knew what you were doing. No one said you have to take this money. No one said you had to take it. And what was really interesting is how quickly you changed your mind once they waved that money in front of you. And again, I want to be clear. I do not begrudge him, and I do not blame him for taking the money. But it's hard to reconcile going that quickly in a 180 from a post right after the season ended saying, I don't want to go from Canton to Cleveland, and then almost immediately after that, signing a $40 million a year deal with the Cleveland Browns. You knew what you signed up for. You knew what you were getting into. There was nothing this offseason, not a single thing, that made anybody think, wow, the Cleveland Browns have figured it out. Everything is going to change for them. It is a completely different organization. It's not. It's still the organization that gave Deshaun Watson the worst contract in the history of the NFL. He may never see the field again for a variety of reasons. Number one, the injury continues to bother him. But number two, he's not any good anymore. Okay? So he's injured and not as good anymore, which just doubles down on how bad that deal is. That was all part of it, man. You knew what the situation was. You knew how this was going to go. You knew that Joe Flacco was going to be your starting quarterback until you lost some games, which is exactly what happened. And then they turned it over to a rookie quarterback in Dylan Gabriel. And quite frankly, they may be turning it over to another rookie quarterback in Shedeur Sanders. We'll see. Kevin Stefanski seems to be pretty adamant about and obstinate about not playing Shedeur Sanders for a variety of reasons that have people absolutely batshit crazy and going down every conspiracy theory and wormhole they can possibly think of without thinking about it rationally first, which is something we try to do here. We don't want to yell at you. We just want to have a discussion with you to try and make you smarter. So I empathize to a degree with Myles Garrett about his situation. He is a Hall of Famer first ballot, no doubt player that is having a career that every other edge rusher in the NFL would drool over having, and it hasn't amounted to anything for him. But that was a choice. You made that choice. And I've heard people say, oh, give me a break. You're misrepresenting the facts. There's no way they could trade him. Yeah, you can. You can do whatever you want. There's all kinds of ways. When people say it's the cap, that's an easy excuse. It's an easy out. There are always ways to manipulate the cap and manipulate that number. We see these things happen all the time when people are traded. And some are like, well, how do they do that with that salary cap situation? You get creative. You never let the money get in the way if you really want something else. So again, it's really important for people to hear what I'm saying. I do not begrudge him taking the money, and I understand his frustration. But it's hard for me to reconcile those two things, because it's not like you went to a new team and you had all these hopes that it would be different. You stayed where you were because they offered you more money than anybody else. And by the way, that money is why Micah Parsons is now a Green Bay Packer. Stellar game Sunday night, by the way, against the Pittsburgh Steelers, and not a Dallas Cowboy, because Myles Garrett flipped the frickin' edge market forever with that deal. So at the end of the day, Myles Garrett decided, you know what? F it. I might as well take the money. And when you take the money with a team and an organization like the Cleveland Browns, you know that barring lightning striking 37 times in the same place or finding a winning Powerball ticket, that they're going to be who they are, and who, for the most part, they've been for decades. You can go look at the Browns jersey with all the names of all the quarterbacks back there since they've gone into the league. It's a ridiculous number. This is not a statistical outlier. This is a trend of over 25 years. This is who they frickin' are. And you knew that. You knew that when you took the money. So I understand your frustration, and I get it. You are a first ballot Hall of Fame player, but you knew the mess you signed up for. So it's hard for me to sit there and say, I feel bad for you. I understand your frustration. I can certainly see why you would be frustrated. But my question is, then why did you decide to stay? Why did you decide to take that money? Why didn't you and your agents try and find some creative way to get somebody to get you out of that hellhole? And I want to be clear. I'm not talking about the city, and I'm not talking about the fans. I'm talking about the organization. It is a dumpster fire. It has always been a dumpster fire. And the way things are going, it's going to continue to be a dumpster fire for a long time until they can figure it out. You know, all these teams that are awfully bad all the time, it usually goes down to ownership, right? What did Woody Johnson say about Justin Fields this past week? You know, we can't complete a pass. And you saw how devastated that was for Justin. You saw his post-game reaction. These teams that are routinely bad have one thing in common: absolutely no leadership and absolutely terrible ownership. Jimmy Haslam has proved to be a terrible owner for the Cleveland Browns. Woody Johnson has proven over and over again to be a terrible owner for the New York Jets. Okay? So when you have an organization that continues to fail, it fails from the head down. The fish rots from the head down. And Myles, you are an unbelievable player. But you knew all of this. You had all of this information before you signed on to that deal. So while I can understand your frustration, and as a competitor and as someone who likes to watch people compete and play at the highest level, I get it. But, you know, he likes to have a graveyard for all the quarterbacks that he sacked. You dug your own grave here. And now you got to find a way to dig yourself out of it by either coming to terms with the fact that the money you took was the most important thing, or be as creative as hell and get the hell out of there, like you said you wanted to in February of this year, only to quickly, very quickly, change your mind when they put the money in front of you. As I've said before on this podcast and other places, I'll say it again. When athletes say it's not about the money, it is almost always about the money. So if you're frustrated, do what they did in that season of Breaking Bad when the guy just laid down on the mattress full of money just to feel better. And there you have it.